for the first segment for tonight's show is Frenchman River's Model Works, Build Along, by Tom Farrell. So, Mr. Farrell, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. This evening, I am going to feature part 2 of 3, but we will be finishing the lobster boat this evening. Just want to thank James and Anna Cleveland. They're the proprietors of Frenchman River Model Works. And I just want to say this is an outstanding resin kit. It has a great amount of detail to it that is, you'll see, will be brought out tonight by finishing it with a variety of paints. And Frenchman River is also the York legacy models and some new ones. These are structures that are iconic in our hobby. And I think most of you know I consider him a living legend. He's quite a modeler. Anyway, let's go on here. This is where we left off last week. I had sprayed the hull and the cabin with this Krylon chalk paint. And as I mentioned, these are relatively easy kits to put together. The art is in the finishing of them. So this was the paint team, as I refer to all the different paints that I used to finish this model this evening. I primed the model last week with a gray primer. And then as I just showed you, I used this chalky finish, which gives you a very nice antique weathered white finish right off the get-go. And I'll show you along the trip here tonight where all these paints are applied to the model. That's what I use there for reference. The first color I applied was this, and I rarely use these flow pool paints, but I wanted a base green here. And so I got out my old flow pool Poison, and I hand painted that in between on the rear deck. Next, I used this polyscale Guilford gray, and I hand painted the inner cabin deck, and just with a brush. And that's the overall look. You can see all the detail, see the nail holes and the wood grain. So the idea was not to paint this so much that you cover up all the details. Next, I chose another gray from Polyscale, a darker gray, Guilford gray. You don't have to be too careful putting it on the deck, but you do have to pay attention to the perimeter. So you'll see there's a white band that I left around the perimeter. Now, even if you get some gray into the white band, you can go back and paint it white or vice versa. I call that a bounce till you get it correct. I had a few instances where I had to go back with white, go back with gray. These are just base colors, so it's not too important how carefully they're applied. Next, as I mentioned in the previous video, I intended to go with the classic red, white, and blue for the final colors on here. I use this acrylic dark blue, it's called. I just hand painted it on here. Then I scratched these surfaces with a wire brush. That brought out the color below it. Again, you want to go with the grain. These are still rough finishes, so you don't have to be too terribly careful. We're just trying to remove paint because we're going to be building layers of light colors to achieve the final look. For these wood slats on the back of the boat, I turned to a gel stain, this oak color. It's sort of a translucent color, so I painted it on there several layers and scratched it off. You can see it's a pretty good weathered look there. And then for the trim, I use this acrylic again. I use the scarlet color, and just with a flat brush, an artist brush, I just highlight these sideboards. On the other side of the boat are additional boards and additional call for this scarlet color. So, and I did put a blue stripe across this the top of the gunwale here. There's a better look at the rear decking. This whole look will improve as we go along. It's a process. There we are. Next, they give you these lobster boxes. These are a paper type material, laser cut. They come on a little tab like this, and then you simply cut them out. They expect you to put wire, or I'm sorry, rope. We'll call them handles here. I found that quite tedious. I did one of these. One was enough. They also give you lobster traps. These are laser cut from that same type of paper material. These look great. And there's a trick. They give you these instructions, and that's how you do build them. You basically fold these tabs up like they show here, step one. So you fold the ends up, and then you take the lid or the outside, and you serve it here. And I put just a little bit of super glue along this edge. So when I folded this up and attached it right here, it made for it sealed the quote lobster trap. And when that was dry, then I went in with a fine needle of super glue, and I did this perimeter here on both sides, the ends, if you will, and super glue. You can't even see the super glue on the finished model, and I didn't paint them. They look great just as they are. Then I glued them onto the back of the boat here. I put one inside, so you can see the super glue there a little bit. And I super glued them to the deck here and just in a random fashion. Next was the railings. After the initial primer, the base color of white, the background wash of green, and then the blue, these penetrations were basically not large enough to accept the railings, the wooden railings. So I simply hollowed them out with an X-Acto knife. And there's the railings there. They are just made out of the same material as these lobster traps. And this photo, getting a little ahead of myself, but I painted these windows. I blacked them out. I painted this black. There's that blue stripe I was referring to. This is that gel dye, that oak, not dye, gel stain. I wanted to put a little bit of wood, real wood on this thing, despite being cautioned by a couple of our modelers. And then I started with some pan pastels on the side of the boat here to start the weathering process. I just used a brown pan pastel, which is basically a pigment of an oil-based pastel, like a chalk. So that's the progress so far. I'm not, of all the details on there, I'm not real excited about this wheel they came up with. If I got ambitious, I'd go to a model boat supply store and put a real wheel on there. I may do that. For the instrument panels, I simply painted them with this aluminum from Testers. I've had these paints basically since I was a child. I've never used them as an adult. And I thought, God, these things are 55 years old. And I thought, well, let's try this. And it was still a viable paint, never been opened. And I painted this base silver, and then I went back with this natural steel, they call it, and I highlighted the gauges basically. And I put a little dab on that door. It's effective. Everything looks fine. I did touch that up, and this was touched up, but I'm not real excited about that wheel. Just a little side note. It's my out of focus window glass. This is the laser cut acetate they give you with the model. And I really appreciate this because of all the things I do in the hobby. My least favorite thing is to cut acetate for windows. And the fact that they had them laser cut, they went right in. I just cut them out. I mean, they're more or less cut. You have to cut the tabs off. And I laid them in place, and I used this canopy glue. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this. It dries completely clear. It's frequently used in model aircraft to do the canopies in those models. That's where it got its name. But it basically dries completely clear, and there it is right there. I got a little pan pastels on there right now, but believe me, they're crystal clear. So there again I hit this with a liberal coating of pan pastels. And to take some of these harsh scratches from my wire brush, I took this very fine sandpaper. It's like a flexible sandpaper. I just lightly sanded the entire model anywhere I had the scratches. It gave me this terrific weathered look. This is the advantage of doing things in layers. If, for example, see an artist likes to do things in layers and show different colors. I put that layer of green under there just to add a little interest to this. So it's not just stark blue and white. There's just an underlying color there. It makes for a really effective model. So then I placed it into the area where it will go on the rustic buffalo road. I took out a crane barge that I built, scratch built. I put this in place. This is the Frenchman River fishing boat that I did about 3 months ago. This is what got me in trouble to do this one. There's the clear shot of the boat. So you can't really tell that it was scratched anymore. There's a couple of details that were added in here. These are all, this is a metal anchor and a metal chain. I simply painted it black. And then I hit it with a rust color, and then I super glued it on there. This little derrick thing with the pulley, it's just a cast metal part. I painted it black, reamed this hole out with my X-Acto knife. Then I hit it with a weathering color. There's looking down at that angle. Just put a little dab of super glue on there. I'll go into some of these details in a moment here. There's an up close. So it came with everything you see here, but the figure. So these buoys, how this works is these buoys are attached to the lobster traps. The lobster traps are thrown into the water, and then this floats up. This is this boat's color. And as you'll see, one of these is on the roof of this lobster boat, denoting that white and yellow and white stripe buoys are for this particular boat. So that's their drill. And, it comes with a couple of paddles and the spear. That's all that same cardboard material. I painted this silver, hit it with a rust color. Did my best to try and make these look like lobsters. I may go back and try that again. Remember, lobsters are only orange when they're cooked. Otherwise, they're like a brown or green color. I put a few in here. I have one escaping here as a little joke. I got some on the floor here, just a little chaos. From a distance, that wheel looks presentable. This is not a fine looking model. That's all resin, basically 3 pieces, and just these detail pieces that come with the model. There's that buoy on the roof of the cabin. That tells all the other fishermen that if they see these white, white buoys, it's this guy's boat. Really, really attractive model. See the details on the side here, the nail holes. I had some, just general. There's the, see the light sanding took away all those ugly, crude scratches. It looks quite weathered, and it's really just Tamiya primer, Krylon chalk white from a spray bomb can, poly and acrylic hand brush paints, light gray inside, dark gray, and blue, scarlet for the sides. Then I scratch it with a wire brush and then sand it with a very, very fine sandpaper, and it looks like it's 100 years old. There's the boat coming out of the harbor. Added another guy here. Really nice models. So now that's the end of part 2. There is a fishing shanty. So this is as Jim refers to it, this can be an industry on your model railroad. You can have a lobster boat and then a fishing shanty where they actually sell the day's catch. So the final segment of this next week will be the shanty itself, which is also a cast resin. There is no associated parts from Frenchman River models on the shanty. It's just one single casting, but I'm going to kit bash it to make it far more interesting. So, any questions from anyone?
I think it looks great. I think it really could be a new industry for a lot of people.
Yeah,
That steering wheel, can I make a suggestion?
yeah.
You know those fancy wooden toothpicks with the fancy ends on them? They're wood, they're kind of like toothpicks have been turned on the end a little bit. If you cut them off and put them on each one of those spokes and then put a center in that wheel, it would look pretty good.
That's a good idea. Just because it's lacking detail at the moment.
Yeah, that would add the detail you need,
Yeah,
I think.
that's a good idea. I'll try that, and if it doesn't work,
You
I'll
can always take it off.
yeah, take it off and try it.
Maybe you can show us how it looks next week, Tom, because that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. This is a very I just want to say again just how nice these resin kits are. And again, it's all about the art of finishing them and technique share this one could do. It is simple technique.
Yeah,
Looks good.
Okay, guys, thank you.
gotcha.